Okay, so the fuselage are now joined together. I give it a coat of extra thin just off camera. Okay, so this has only just been done like a couple of hours, so I'm not going to start sanding yet. I want it to fully cure before I start the cleanup. But what I am going to do is grab one of our famous Posca pens. Alright, I've got a white one, and what I'm going to do is outline the seam itself. Alright, this is not the nicest coloured styrene to work with. So it's an old trick. Normally you just do it with sort of a black one or a darker one. But what I'm going to do is just draw a line, okay, just down the seam. Okay, it don't have to be neat, because what this will do is highlight any high and low spots when you start sanding or scraping. It's a really old trick, but it does work. Right, obviously you can see the paint stinging there, but we'll just go over it anyway. Alright, and same again underneath. So this, say, should highlight any defects we've got. If there's any gaps that need filling, which I think there probably will be a couple. Alright, so just a little simple trick, but like I say, it's going to give us a rough guide of what we've got. Like say for defects and any cleanup work that we're going to need to do. So what I'm going to do now is just put that aside, give that a good few days to properly harden off. I'm not going to rush this. As I say, I don't want any ghost seams appearing or anything. I mean, again, if you're in a rush, which I'm not overly, but you could obviously super glue these seams instead of obviously like I've done, just using contactor and extra thin. Again, that will give an instant bond or something to sand to. But I thought, well, we're doing it this, I'll just show you this way of doing it. I'm going to initially scrape clean it. I'm going to try and keep as much of the raised detailing as I possibly can without obliterating it, and then obviously any remedial work for, like I say, filling, sanding, and clean up we'll do after, when we know where we're at. So yeah, we'll leave it at that, and then we'll come back in due course to carry on the cleanup stage. Okay, so the Posca pen guide is down and dry. As you can see, I have started to sort of clean this up prior to putting the camera on. We've just left this top seam now just to do. Underneath pretty much done as well. So the aim for me is obviously scrape clean this back down, keeping as much of the raised detail as possible. So the least we've got to put back in, the better. I don't really want to go in and obliterate everything with a sanding stick, like obviously you can do with a recess, because then obviously just rescribe it in. But this has got some really nice raised panel lines. So like I said, I'm going to try and keep as much of them intact as possible. So tools for the job. Now I've got a few candidates here. Obviously got the old Alex scrapers, 3 different versions. Okay, so these got different sort of curves and, you know, shapes that fit contours and stuff that you need. Really good if you can get hold of these. Unfortunately, we can't sell these in PM. We can't get hold of them, but I wish we could. But yeah, if you can get hold, you know, people do sell them, so really worth getting. I think they did 4 different ones. I've got 3 if I remember rightly. But yeah, really good. Other option as well, which will probably go down, is obviously the blades. I've got a few different, you know, different little blades. Quite like that one because it's quite small. Gets in, keeps the detail. Same with that one. I'm honestly not sure the numbers, I'll be honest. But again, these are useful, and the one I'm probably going to use, which I found actually in another toolbox, is that one. So again, that's got a nice narrow sort of blade point. So when you can just keep it into the bit that you want to scrape. And then also, obviously, which I've only got, how many I've got here, if I've got any more. Don't look like it, but obviously you've got the Master Tool Scrapers. They do 3 different versions. This is obviously the sharp one again. This one's probably not the best one for the job. The other 2 are probably better, but again, if you can see, they will work. Get the blade right. So anything with a decent blade, let's just put it that way. So just move these out of the way. So basic aim is, I'll try and keep this in camera, is obviously got the guide of the white Posca pen. I have to turn this round to see. I'll try and get this in a decent angle. Alright, I've got a seam line running across here, as you can see. Kind of scraped up to it to a point. There's a little bit to clean up. So we've got sort of this section here. So again, blade on, just watch the angle of it, and then just gently, when I mean gently, let the blade do the work. Just run it along that seam. Alright. And what that will do is just level it off. Any high spots and just keep your blade clean. It does build up on the end. Alright, just going up to that panel line. Just gently do that. So as you can see, the camera will catch this, there's still a bit of white in there, so I've got a low spot which I can't really feel with my nail, but there's definitely one there. So if any white obviously sitting in, depending on what colour styrene you use, you can use black or white, indicates normally there's a low spot because obviously the paint's sitting in it. See, like there, look, which I can feel with my nail on that one. But that'll probably need a bit of filling. So what I'm going to do for that is the old Superglue talc trick that's Phil's brought back into fashion, shall we say. But again, you're not going to get any sinkage. It's going to be ideal for this. I don't want to scrape too far and then make the joint weak, even though this has been contacted together, so it should be okay, and then obviously extra thinned over the top. But yeah, I want to keep that joint as strong as possible so we don't get any sort of seam breakages. Now there is a sort of a panel here, as you can see. So the seam line is very close to on the panel line, so again, just going to be very careful where I'm scraping. Just to get that down. That is a little bit low actually. There's a little bit of a low spot, so let's clean that off. And just keep going until you've got it level. You'll see it go, you'll just see the sort of shiny styrene underneath. It will just fade once you get get down to it being level. Alright, it's a hell of a lot better there. You can see that, but that panel there, and we've not even touched the raised panel line that's near it. Okay, if you're going in with a sanding stick, you'd just obliterate that, and then you'd have to either put it back in or rescribe it or whatever you'd want to do. But yeah, that feels great. So there we go. Alright, so I'm going to do this last little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll start any other filling that needs doing. We'll go over it again, because I definitely know on this front bit there where you can see that I can put my nail in that, so that needs a bit of filler. I think there's a few other bits as well. So we'll do those, we'll get those done, and then we can move on to either putting the lines in that we've lost. We'll get a coat of primer on it, I think, next after that, and then we can have a look at what panel lines are still there, what's been sort of lost, and we can put those back in. And yeah, we're really coming together. Probably get the back on, get the back tail into place, because that's all in once them seam lines are nicely cleaned up. I'm going to leave the wings off, put the nacelles on and all the other bits. So yeah, going to come together really fast after this. So time for a bit of a catch up where I'm at with this. So everything's been rubbed down, filled. What I've used for the filler is mainly Black Widow. Alright, I find this actually more easier to use than the sort of mega mix of magnet and talc. I've got feeling the talc I'm using is the newer sort of talc, and it's not really compatible. It will seem to have clumping up and going off really fast. And then talk to Phil, when he does his sort of mix, he's got well, it's chalk, French chalk, a pure one, and it's a lot better. So he's going to send me some up. But actually, I did find the Black Widow really useful, because you can obviously see what you've got to do is really give it a good shake and then let it go off fully before sanding. But it's done the job, as you can see underneath, and you can actually see, you know, where you've been and what you've got to sand. So just put the tail on and just let that dry off and set, and just clean up the seam lines on there. Alright, I've got the actual ailerons, if you want to call it that, all the tail bits to go in. They'll slot in there quite nicely, so that's not going to be a problem. But I want to get all these seam lines, if there's any joins, cleaned up before we get them bits on. So there is going to be some remedial work, if you want to call it that, for the panel lines. Hopefully not too much, but plan is let me just come around a little bit. Get this in a coat of primer and then go from there. So I kind of want to get this together. The wings all slot in again. Got the nacelles on, clean them up. I've just literally just put a bit of Vallejo plastic putty in. Alright, one that I can clean up without sanding, because there is detail under here. There was a bit of a gap, not too bad. But again, it did need doing, so that might need another coat. So I'm going to just let that dry and then come back and have a look. Same with the front. Again, bit of super glue on the back, just sanded and filed into shape. So that's both of the wings done. Alright, so they're looking okay. So when it comes to painting, they do, as I keep probably showing, just slot in. There's a really nice fit, so I can paint them separate, which is nice. I've also, if anybody's think, I've not put the cannon in yet, but it just actually slides in, so that's not a problem. I didn't forget actually to put it in when I joined the fuselage halves up, he says. But yeah, I've cleaned the nose parts up, see how they go. And actually they don't look a bad fit. So one of them just slots in there. There's a couple of little tabs on the end there, look, and they slot in. So put the top bit on. I'm having mine closed. You can have the option of open, but I want mine closed. That'll go in there, and then the bottom one with obviously this bulkhead. It just slots into that, so that will line up. There we go, look. So we can get that into place. I need to put a bit of nose weight in somewhere. To be honest with you, looking at it, there's not a lot of places to put nose weight, so I might actually be using the open hatches to wedge this up, because I don't think I can whack enough nose weight in there. I don't know, I'll see with that, but yeah, I've got a feeling we're gonna have to use the hatches open as a wedge. So hopefully we'll be something like that. But yeah, apart from that, we are really pushing on now, which I'm glad about. So once this seam works out the way, which is definitely not my favourite part of doing aircraft, but actually the super glue, even if you use the mix with the talc or the French chalk or this Black Widow, actually speeds things up, which I'm pleased about because I don't like waiting for things to dry. So that's where I'm at the minute. Like I say, I'm going to get these nose parts on, these bits cleaned up, and probably next time you will see this, we will be ready for priming and in the spray bay. So we've got this ready for primer. Alright, so seam work's all done now. I've had to do a bit of correction work just on the top. You see, I've had to put a bit of putty in there. Mainly because when I'd put the black guide coat on, they were just showing some faint signs of, I suppose, what would be called sinkage. Again, so just a fine coat of putty on there. What I've used is, which unfortunately you can't get in this country, but it's just a Tamiya basic type putty. Again, if you've got an alternative, any of the others will do. Well, I got Squadron, which unfortunately is not available. Again, good putty, or the Plasto putty. So this is like one of the hotter products, not one of the acrylic ones. So again, just put that in, smeared it in, just sanded it off with a little bit of 800 wet and dry, to be honest, on that. So put some packing sponges in the orifices. Alright, and also what I did do off cam, obviously the clear parts are on now, is give it a coat of the interior colour underneath, and then just a coat of satin black, which I'd use for the seam lines just to make it look a bit more solid. So next step is to give this, like I say, a coat of primer. For this I'm going to be using just some Mr. Surface 1200. Alright, I'm going to go for another hot product, but it should be alright. This is kind of already thinned, probably 60-40 thinners to paint. I want it a little bit thicker, but not too much. So I had a bit left, so I'm just going to finish this off. So we'll move over to the spray bay. We'll get the airbrush loaded up, and then we'll start laying some primer on. What I'll probably do is just leave the camera running because I want my ventilation on, because this thing does stink, so I won't be going through it. But usual thing with primer, nice gripper coat, and then a couple of decent coats on top of that. So yeah, we'll crack on with that. So back out spray booth and back over to the bench. So the surface has now gone off. Alright, it's had a few days, to be honest. We've been doing other things, but it's now gone off. It's now nice and dry. And got it on the fuselage, which is good. But as you can hear, we've got texture. So to get rid of that, I'm going to use some sanding sponges. So Tamiya obviously do their range. Let's get it right way around. Go from various grits up to 3000, I think, if I remember. So obviously that's 1500. I've got a tiny bit left of an old one of a 2000, which again is warm, but that's kind of what you want. There's a 1500, and also AK started doing their own little sanding pads. I'm a big fan of sanding pads, to be honest. I really like them. Different grits and grades are just, you know, for certain jobs are brilliant, especially for prepping. Obviously paintwork is you know, they're ideal. So I think this one comes with, it says on the packet, an 800, a 400, a 220 and a 120. So that should just about cover all bases really for just general prep work. So again, we do get a lot of questions about why is my paintwork rough, how can I do smoother paintwork, general things like that. So with all sort of jobs, prep's your key. So this one's going to be a little bit different because of the raised panel lines. Obviously, if this is recessed, you can go a bit more at it, but obviously, you know, this has got raised, so we don't want to be taking any of that detail off. So again, this is going to use the Warn 2000, and as you can hear, I'm not pressing on. What this will do is just take that top rough layer off that you can see. You can kind of see the roughness there, look. So and that is absolutely silky smooth now. So again, don't need much, but it'll be just enough just to, like I say, just take the top off the primer, but just leave the detail in place. So the other good thing about these sanding sponges is obviously you can get into all the hard to reach places. Which you wouldn't be able to do with a sanding stick. Again, you could always use wet and dry paper as well, if that's what you've got to hand. That'll do exactly the same. If you can get a nice fine wet and dry, that'll do the job. Alright, simple as that. Alright, so do the rest of the parts I've got off, and then we'll come back and we'll put in the panel lines that have been lost, and then we can get over to paint. So next step before we start to get some paint on this is to put the panel lines back in. So obviously this is raised and not recessed, so the same sort of principle. I'm going to copy what Phil did on his Voodoo, so if you've not seen that build, go and have a look. So basically what I did is use a blunt blade, which I've sort of practiced underneath, and kind of made a V, so you get a raised bit which acts pretty much as a raised panel line. There's obviously other ways of doing it, but this one seems to be a good technique, so I'm going to copy that from him. Dymo tape, just so you know, I've got a straight line, and the scriber I'm going to use, he uses a blunt sort of blade, like a box cutter if you want to call it that, box knife. I've got a UNM scriber, which is the number 1 if I remember. There you go, for them who are interested. And this is one of them. This blade is actually, the thingy blade is actually quite blunt. It's quite a good blade for this. They do 3 or 4 different flavours. This one, like I say, is probably got the bluntest blade out of the lot. So just doing the underneath, it seemed to work good. So we're going to take our Dymo tape. Right, finally. Alright, so find out which panel lines you've got missing. There's not that many on the top, to be honest. So definitely got one missing there. Just put your tape, my head's in the way, hopefully not. Just where you need to scribe, as you would do with rescribing. Okay. Then take the blade, try and do this in the camera. Okay, and then just again, same as you would rescribing, just let the tool do the work. Okay, give it a bit of a rub. There we go, we have a panel line. So there's one here as well. Same again with the tape, just get your blade, just a couple of swipes with it, there we go, and there you go, simple as. You can just feel that, a nice sort of raised bit there. Okay, got one here as well. Line that up properly. Take the edge of your blade and then just run it over. There we go. So 3 swipes seems to be enough. There we go. Easy as that. So, because once this is rescribed, we will move it over to the spray bay and start getting down some colour on it.